When you think of horror, you probably think of games like Five Nights at Freddy's, ones that purposely rely on jump scares in order to build fear. However, developers like Dan Salvato, Kikiyama, and Kill Monday Games wanted to create a different way of experiencing horror, one that uses various tactics of emotional and mental manipulation, bringing us into the terrifying and tragic situations these games have to offer, and leaving a lingering effect long after the game is ended. But how do they do it? How are they able to make a game that far surpasses the unease of its counterparts, with little to none of the conventional methods? Today, we're going over the genius way psychological horror scars you. Psychological horror is something that isn't easily defined, as it is so broad. Loosely, it is defined as a game that is able to scare you without the use of constant jump scares, rather using other factors such as atmosphere and overall feeling of isolation. But where did this new genre of horror begin? Going back to 2004, we have one of the first examples of this, released from a developer no one to this day knows much about. Yume Nikki delves into the anxiety-filled nightmares of our main character Matatsuki, who we are told indirectly has crippling anxiety of the real world outside, so instead she goes into her surreal dreamscape. When I played this game, I was really taken aback by the complete confusion I was immersed into upon entering this bizarre new set of locations to explore. As you aimlessly wander through these areas, you start to realize how disturbed the main character really is, and despite the huge amount of content, there is absolutely no instructions nor any kind of direction on where to go. You kind of just exist, almost to observe the lives of the creatures that are appearing around you. And despite everything, it emphasizes the feeling that you are as lost and alone as ever. However, this is one of the most tame and subtle examples of psychological horror, as it was made very early on. But you can begin to see the aspects I was talking about earlier, such as the isolation and the effect the music and atmosphere has on the overall experience of the game. This is the most lighthearted we are going to go in this video, so be warned. It only gets more disturbing from here. Now before moving on to the next game, I gotta discuss something. A common method used for psychological horror we are going to begin to see in these games is the relationship you build with the characters you're playing. Despite everything that happens, you end up wanting to see the best for them, to see them happy. In most cases, this is done on purpose, allowing the events of the game to carry that much more in effect as you are defenseless to stop it. Skipping forward to 2014, Kill Monday Games would release a point-and-click adventure game with gruesome gameplay that would put everyone off, but at the same time, leave them intrigued. Fran Bow is a game that takes you into the mind of a traumatized child as she has witnessed the brutal death of both of her parents. Understandably, this has landed her in an asylum full of disturbed children in similar predicaments. This is where any normalcy in this game ends. To treat her illness, Fran is diagnosed with a drug known by duotine. Rather than helping her illness, however, this drug gives Fran the ability to see the horrific creatures hiding behind the scenes. This leads her to escape the asylum in order to find her only friend she has left, her lost cat. She has no idea that after entering the sewer pipe out of the asylum, she will be taken into a world unlike anything other. Throughout the gameplay, we are left wondering whether any of this is actually happening or whether Fran is just suffering from a failed drug trip and stuck in her own delusions. You are led to believe that everything you see while on the drug is fake, and everything you see while lucid is real. However, there are many instances that despite being completely sober, Fran is coming into contact with these abominations nonetheless, leading us to believe that the mechanic of the drug is a complete illusion. While playing through her adventure, you notice little hints that none of this is actually happening, such as finding a corpse of her cat that she's been with the entire time, or encountering two sisters that look eerily similar to two patients that have been in the basement of the asylum. Eventually, she is found by her therapist. He explains to her that he was fired due to fighting back against his bosses about how they were treating kids at the asylum, and he seconds that Fran really never experienced any of the things that she thought she did, but rather had had an extremely negative effect from the drug and had been wandering around in the forest alone and had been presumed dead. But in the end, the so-called delusions do carry on, but it is left up to the player to decide whether this is all fake or whether her whole adventure and all the people you've come to know are actually real. Now, before moving on to our final game, I'm not gonna lie, this one really got to me. Doki Doki Literature Club's creator, Dan Salvato, was able to perfectly portray all the aspects of psychological horror. So I would like to mention, every time I go into this game, it leaves an impact on me like no other. So, fair warning, it contains extremely disturbing visuals that depict serious mental health issues, depression, and self-harm. You have been warned.
I can't wait to play this game. I'm sure it's gonna be very fun and not disturbing at all.
DDLC looks to be on the surface a simple anime dating simulator, one where you have the opportunity to join a club at your school and choose one of the 4 girls to win over. Slowly as you play through the game, you're exposed to more disturbing voice lines that overall just seem out of place. No one seems to be acting normally, and despite believing you had a choice, something or someone has been changing something inside the game itself, leading to something becoming majorly wrong. It is brought to the player's attention that your childhood best friend, Sayori, is acting odd, and her previous giddy and happy facade is breaking. When you prod deeper, she admits that she has struggled with crippling depression her entire life. This is, as it should be, a complete shock and shift in mood from the rest of the game so far. In trying to help Sayori, you have to make a choice, whether you see her as just a friend or as something more. Personally, I thought that now was not the time to friendzone someone, so the answer here was obvious for me. Sayori seems to feel better for the time being, and you return home to prepare for the next day's school event. But looking back, something Sayori said was extremely odd.
Monica? Monica was right about what?
I knew that bitch said something like that. I was joking earlier, but I knew she said something like that.
You are hinted here that Monica said something to Sayori, but we are not exactly told what it is, but we'll come back to that later. The next day, we go to school alone. We arrive at the club only to realize Sayori isn't there, only Monica. After finding a note left on Sayori's desk, we quickly realize that we've made a horrible mistake.
Fuck. I chose the option. That's a sick... Oh god. Oh god, fuck.
Dude, why?
I did everything you were supposed to fucking do. I even said bullshit I didn't mean.
Why? What the fuck?
This shocking event completely sends the game off the deep end, leaving us frantically trying to reload the save to fix things. Everything, however, is completely different, with Sayori being completely replaced, as if she was deleted from the game's files entirely. We are then left with 3 options that we are determined not to make the same mistake again. But the farther we go, the more it's obvious that we won't have a choice, as rather than experiencing the cutesy game from before, but rather a terror like none other, with new disturbing corrupted dialogue such as Natsuki revealing her cruel father that not only starves her but abuses her physically, and Yuri, well... It seems Yuri has become so obsessed with getting you to herself, she has not only done various vulgar acts, you soon discover being around her in general causes her to become so excited she goes to cut herself for her own pleasure. This escalates to the point where she forces all other characters out of their rooms so she can make a confession herself. You were then forced to watch Yuri slowly bleed out until you were found by the other members days later. Natsuki is so shocked, she vomits and sprints out from the room, leaving you once again with just Monica, who is oddly not surprised at this at all, and instead deletes the rest of the characters right in front of you, and brings you to a room inside of a silent void, where it is just you and her. She admits that she's been manipulating the game this entire time, leading everyone else to their deaths so that you would finally try to go for her. But despite how crazy she made everyone, it still didn't work. So now she's forced to break the game and leave us here forever. After finishing the game, I was undoubtedly left speechless, and it was not something I would have expected from a dating simulator, and nonetheless left me with a feeling of unease for the hours following. So in the end, psychological horror is definitely a cut above the rest. Get it? Nope, bad joke. When it comes to gameplay that isn't tired out by the constant use of jump scares to cause fear, this style of horror was really able to put me off like no other subgenre has. So if you want a unique experience, I recommend checking these games out for yourself.
Well, that was quite an adventure. I'm sad to see you go, but don't worry, this doesn't have to be the last time we see each other. I got another cool video, just for you. Hurry, the video's almost over.